I put together an agenda, so unless anybody wants to argue about it, we can start. We can start
things out,
talking about equipment, I suppose.
Yeah.
So there's quite a range of stuff being talked about there. So I don't, Stefan. Do you want to kick off? And
sure. Okay. So there's a whole load of equipment that there are actions on. Oh. Was that was just feedback?
No, it wasn't. Sorry, that was my work chat that was still open, and that's a work colleague saying, "Jonathan, are you available to chat?" Sorry, I've just closed the.
That's all right. Yeah, so I haven't seen much action on the actions, including from myself. I was going to write a proposal for the wood lathe, and I got started on that a couple of weeks ago and haven't done anything more on it. So there's an action on me to continue with that. The other thing that is pertinent to people here is the table saw, table router, multi-tool, whatever people wanted to get.
Table saw. Yes, please.
Yeah, so Katie, you and Jason kind of seem to have volunteered to gather requirements and beat the directors into submission.
Yeah. Does Makespace have, like, I don't know if the template's the right word, or if I need to just have a chat with somebody else that's done this, but I've never been involved with, I've been involved with things like updating the classroom and other things, but I've never really been involved with writing proposals for new pieces of equipment that will then have to go through training.
I can send you a, we talked about this before, and I put together a checklist.
Okay, that'll be good.
With a director's hat on there, saying there's a checklist for what a proposal might look like.
Yeah.
Actually get talked about. And so the idea, I think, is I can send you that again. I'll put it on the thing again. It's on the group somewhere, and I'll send it to you and Jason if you want it as well.
Yes, please.
Can you copy me on that, please?
Yeah, okay, I'll send it around again. I mean,
I've probably seen it, but just in case, I might have the latest version.
I'm not saying it's foolproof in as much as it's never been tested.
It's something good to start with, though, and if it hasn't been tested, we can give it a go now.
You know, if given.
So let me just check. I think I found it. Is it the proposal checklist? You know, how many people will use the equipment?
Yeah.
What is the need? Okay, cool. Yeah. That's great. Then I will get started. I'll start with that. That'll be good.
I'll also mention I haven't actually, aside from the wood lathe, which is partially done, I haven't written any Makespace proposals, but I have written a lot of other proposals. Exactly. So I'm happy to be a friendly reviewer as you go through that.
That'd be really, really good. Yeah. Because I also need to write a proposal for a non-woodshop piece of equipment as well, so that'll be good for that.
I think.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things going on with which will require a pretty thorough risk assessment prior to buying, risk assessments anyway. When you're thinking about a table saw, Katie and Jason, whoever, think that one through pretty carefully, because I mean a lot of it's a no-brainer if it's safe, but it's not. Clearly the reluctance in the past has been to do with safety. As well as, I think, if I heard right, storage as well, but and the setup of it. But those are going to be what I would highlight in all of that is the risk assessment anyway. And I sent because Alan's doing one for the grinder and trying to put that on the table again for discussion at the board meeting, and so he's kind of written a risk assessment for that in draft, which he wanted me to have a look at. So anyway, the long and short, because I've done other ones for other things in Makespace, if you want to write a risk assessment or even just do a bit of research about what's unsafe about a table saw, then I can send you a format for that as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And secondly, help you get it into shape, because it's a bit, if you've never done one before. Yeah. And what I was going to say is, it strikes me the easiest way to write them at Makespace is to get hold of an equipment manual for the thing you're buying and then they always have it all listed out there because they do for CE regs anyway. They have to write it all out. They basically write it out for you. I mean, you have to answer the mitigation questions in how does MakeSpace mitigate something like a table saw being used in MakeSpace.
Yeah, if the worst does happen, what are the steps that you're going to do in the space?
So have a look at, you know, I can give you a hand with that because a lot of it will hinge on that.
Cool, that'd be great.
Yeah, so my advice is, rather than writing a full proposal, get a draft of the risk assessment and the business case, because those are the two things that go together. That if there's no business case, you know, nobody wants it, or it's just you who wants it, then the directors aren't going to bother to read your risk assessment. And the risk assessment, we know that relatively a table saw is a dangerous item compared to some of the items in the workshop. And you need to have the business case to make it make the directors interested in considering that risk, because ultimately, you know, it's a risk that they can take on. People do have table saws, but they've got to be persuaded that it's worth that risk in MakeSpace specifically.
Yeah, when you talk about a business case, to get that kind of information, I mean, obviously I can lie and say loads of people want it. Is it worth sending out? I don't know how responsive people will be though, there's the only problem, but is it worth trying to send out a form of just simply going like, do you want a table saw? Would you use it? Would this benefit you? Would it be best to try and do something like that to get some actual genuine feedback to be able to build the case?
So I think probably yes, that's my instinct. I've been planning on doing something similar for the wood lathe.
Okay, cool. I'm good with Google Forms, so I can put something together quite easily.
Awesome. The other thing to be aware of is Ward apparently has a giant list of all the things people said they wanted to do when they joined MakeSpace, which there was some talk of him sending round, but hasn't done so yet. But I think we should bug him about that.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds similar to the there was wasn't there a similar document that went out around about this time last year, and it was sort of a conversation of like, why did you join MakeSpace? What have you developed here at MakeSpace? Are you a hobbyist, an entrepreneur, a dad who just wants to build a cabinet? Like, I think we collected some similar information a year ago, didn't we?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things like that. Yeah.
When you sign up now, one of the questions on the digital induction form is, what can you contribute and what would you be willing to do? That's where you're getting that information from.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea to stick something on the MakeSpace group and ask. And I think there's obviously, if you've got, there's weight in numbers, if you know what I mean, for the business case, but also another key thing would be that, you know, a minimum of 2 people are very committed enough to own it, i.e. maintain it and train it and stuff like that. So there'll be a couple of criteria on people.
Yeah.
So it
can't just be a case of like, everyone really wants it. It's like, that's great, but how is it going to be looked after and utilized and kept in good nick?
Yeah. So there's a, you know.
Might also help to give an idea of what kind of features we want out of it as well, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess that'll fall into like, how much money are we wanting to spend, and if we can justify like getting a super high-end one. I mean, I know they've got some really, really good safety features.
Well, there was a lot. There's been a bit of a debate about. I don't know what the safety feature is actually called, but there's this sensor that you can put on a saw that will, if you stick your hand near it, it'll stop the blade dead.
Saw stop.
Yeah.
There you go. So there's a clue in the name. So,
it's very expensive as far as I understand it.
But it sounds like a really good safety feature to have.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's there's a couple of YouTube videos. I can't remember who did it, but somebody pointed a slow-mo camera at the one they have and showed the mechanism working, and it basically in order for it to work, it kind of destroys it. Says there's a cartridge underneath that destroys itself in the process, sort of thing. So yeah, it's a really good safety feature, but it's not reusable, sort of thing. You have to replace that whole cartridge afterwards. So
okay, well then it's worth figuring out like how expensive that is and just making sure people don't go, oh, let me quickly test it. Don't even, don't even.
Well,
everybody
actually,
chucking frankfurters at it or something.
We could build that into the price. Just be like, if it saves your life, you've got to pay for the cartridge. Or sorry, if it saves you've got to pay for the cartridge. That'll make people be really cautious.
I mean, that sounds because if anything, wouldn't it just be, it would be a case of like, if you cause that to happen, you have to fill out a detailed safety report. And if we feel like it wasn't a good enough situation to justify it, then you have to pay a fine. Right? Especially if it's like, you've been dumb, you've been fucking dumb. Now you have to pay.
Well, I suppose the price you could pay is getting told off by Katie. If that's
everybody, no. The price you get if you don't have to pay, it's not just getting told off by me. It's making it public on a big projector, being repeated, so everyone's like, "Oh, that idiot!" Yeah. And he has to wear a dunce hat as well.
Excellent.
Well, what we could do is rig it up so that when the mechanism fires, it also activates a camera, just so that we've caught that.
In case you
God, let's hope no one actually really gets hurt or anything, because obviously it will look really bad. It's got to be for those stupid
because
situations.
our YouTube video will get so many hits.
I know.
TikTok
will take membership through the roof.
That would go viral. That one.
Yeah.
But yeah,
maybe we'll get sponsored.
I wouldn't.
And then we can get free equipment.
Exactly. You know, when it comes to the cost of stuff like that, I wouldn't be shy about asking, you know what I'm saying? Because this is a business at the end of the day, not somebody's own workshop at home. So
the steer we had from Simon is that the list of criteria from least to most are capital cost, maintenance cost, and then what was the other one? Capital cost, consumables. What was the third one?
Well, you said maintenance. So is it capital, maintenance, and consumables? Or
maybe those were separate things, maintenance and consumables.
Yeah.
So I think basically the directors don't really care about upfront cost if they don't have to pay anything down the line. Yeah. But if somebody has to be, cleaning out mechanisms and replacing cartridges.
If it's costing like $1,000 a month or $1,000 a year to maintain it, that's going to be pretty pricey.
Yeah.
What Jonathan, do you know off the top of your head, like the maintenance cost on the laser cutters, like for the filters?
Yeah, so we go through a set of filters is £380, and depending on their use, we usually go through, like last year, we're going through, say, a set of filters every 3 months, something like that. But it can be that if it's heavy use, like a lot of engraving, up to, I mean, the earliest they've been changed, the soonest they've been changed has been every 6 weeks, but that's pretty rare. But then a tube can cost anywhere between, if we get them cheap, £200, but if you don't get them cheap, they can be $450. But a tube can last sometimes a year or more. So that's where getting people to use the laser in the best possible sense really helps. Like not having people ram it up to 100 power when it's not needed is very good. That's the sort of thing where you want to try and avoid that.
It's good to know that I know where the laser cutter is. Correct me if I'm wrong in this assumption, but they're one of the most popular pieces of equipment, right?
Yeah, I mean
we got two of them for a reason.
If the filters were if they were double the price, you would still do it because they're the draw.
Yeah,
they're a complete draw for MakeSpace. So
well, that's a good margin to be looking at. Like if we want to introduce any new equipment, we obviously want to be below that maintenance cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that's definitely going to be relevant to the table saw is space. So better table saws tend to be less portable.
Yeah.
And so, if it's permanently installed somewhere, where's that going to be? How much space is it going to take up?
Especially when it's not being used.
There's a similar discussion with the thicknesser, where we had to opt for the handheld, the movable one, because there wasn't the runway. You want like 2-3 meters on either end, and there just wasn't anywhere to put the thicknesser in that capacity. I think that's the issue with the bandsaw. Sorry, Katie.
That's right. I was going to say, like, then wouldn't this lead into a slightly different conversation with discussing how mobile, how well the room is set up? Not to say like it needs to be radically changed, but if we do have some big piece of equipment, and they're taking, and that is a situation when they're not being used, they're taking up space. And I guess it's a conversation of like, can all of these, if we'll make space, there must be a way we can be crafty and clever about this, but is there a way of being able to essentially put them home, and when you need them, you unlock them, you draw them out, you set them up, and then you use it? Because that would hopefully encourage way more cleanliness in the space. Like if you have to actively put it away, you also have to make sure it's clean. And then the idea is like everything just gets put away, so the space is nice and empty.
You can definitely get those machines that do that, can't you? You can get them for your garage or home workshop sort of thing. You can get them like that, can't you?
Because I've watched enough YouTubers now where they're like, I've got a crate and I have all this equipment in it, and look at me move and shift it all around. It's like, cool. Maybe Makespace could do that.
Yeah, I've seen table saws on wheels as well, so it's absolutely possible. Yeah.
Well, obviously, just have to be smart and safe, because it's not 1 or 2 people using it; it'd be everybody, and we just got to assume that the worst person is going to be treating it the baddest, and then that's how we got to make sure to reinforce it to make sure it's good and safe and secure. Also will last a long time too. You don't want the table saw to break on someone's foot when they're trying to move it. Add that to the risk assessment.
Yeah, that was the point with those 2 new big tables, was that they were casters, so you can move the workshop around as you need, which is definitely a given considering the limited amount of space they have. Yeah.
Is anybody looking at the extraction? I don't know, Stefan, I think you had a thing, you were interested in that. I don't know whether you're working on it or not, really.
I'm not actively working on it.
Not pushing it. I'm just asking more than anything.
Yeah, no, I would like to move that forward. The thing I'm waiting on actually is Tom and Rick were going to put together a sketch. Well, Rick was going to put it together in the first place of a proposed new layout. And so there was a whole kind of work stream on that. Rick's been swamped with work.
Yes.
And so that hasn't really moved forward as far as I know.
No, I don't think so. He dropped me a note before this meeting saying sorry he couldn't make it. He was very busy and he hadn't had the time to do any myth-based stuff.
Sorry, Chris. Stefan, didn't you invite someone round previously to look at the extraction? I'm sure I met you at
I did. Yeah, we got a chap round to actually make some measurements on the extraction. And I kind of kept putting off trying to put that forward to the directors. Adrian wasn't particularly keen on changing the ducting. So I put that off. And I think one thing is that if we located the extraction unit more centrally, then the ducting would all be shorter.
Yeah.
My particular concern is the wood lathe, and that's right at the end of the longest route.
So you put it in the middle between the CNC and the wood lathe, but against the wall. Then it would be super close to the 2 things that use it the most.
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to get to? I thought you were trying to clean up the air generally in the workshop, but you're actually looking for a vacuum system more than a dust.
Well, that's that too. So I have a bugbear that everybody agrees that the best way to remove dust from the air is at source.
Yeah.
However, the reality of Makespace is we have a bunch of people who use sanders with no extraction at all, and the extraction isn't great on all the equipment, and I think it's unlikely we'll ever get to the point where we don't put much dust into the air. And so I think it would be quite useful to have some ambient air filters.
Right.
But it's a bit of a kind of perennial, going around in circles, because yes, it is better, and people keep talking about, well, should the plunge router have extraction, and should people use extraction with the sanders? And I'd love people to be, educating everybody in the workshop to use the extraction that is available.
There might be an angle. There might be an angle in that, in as much as I think I was talking with Adrian about it, and he's a lot keener on the vacuum system and local extraction for sanders, let's say, or the router or whatever. He's a lot keener on that than he is on a general extract. And I mean, part of me says, yeah, I'd agree with that, because you get rid of the source, is what you just said.
That is the best solution.
No, I mean, I don't know whether that's what you were intending. That was the question I was asking. Is that the angle you were taking, or if you are, then there might be. Adrian might be more. He would agree, I think.
Well, I don't think Adrian would object to getting it the necessary attachments to use the extraction on sanders. I mean, presumably the sanders can use a vacuum or something, and the plunge router can, but not many people know about that.
No.
It really comes down to training.
Yes.
And I guess from my simplistic perspective, it's easier to buy a piece of kit than it is to get all of the members trained and check that they are using the equipment correctly. I'll be the first to admit that's not actually the best solution, but it might be the most expedient one.
The plunge router is an interesting one, because in the training for that, or at least the training I did for it, the extraction addition for it is mentioned, so people should know about it, but it's actually discouraged from using it because it's felt that it's not maybe as safe because it reduces visibility or something.
It's also so awful though, the little plastic thing that attaches to it, and it sucks up like 10%. I mean, it still helps, but it's just there, and then you're trying to use this thing, and it's just so not cool, man.
Yeah, but if we had you could say if we had a better router with a light inside of that hood, and there's better ones available that you can see what you're doing.
Have you seen the handheld CNC router that's on? It's on YouTube as well. I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, the Kickstarter one, where it drives itself.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Thing,
yeah.
Well, if you had one of those, maybe you wouldn't need a table saw.
Oh, I don't know.
No, I still want a table saw.
Knock the wall down.
It would still take so many passes to cut through wood, whereas table saw is like, ugh. It's great. I do have a comment about the extraction, more to do with that loose cable, the loose tubing that's over one of the tables. I mentioned to Tom, and I mentioned to another guy, and I mentioned to Tom my suggestion regarding it, because there's been a couple of times now where I work on that table. But one time it got caught on my hat, and then I couldn't get it off without someone helping me. And then another time it's just been in the way and hit me in the face. Because at the moment, like, it just hangs, and it does block a lot of the usability of the table. This is more just a temporary fix. A suggestion was to install a pulley system, so you can just pull it out the way and then just pull it down when you need it to be, because that's something easy enough to install. B&Q sell pulley systems. You could just grab a couple for like 10-15 pounds and then just set it up so that it's out the way but still able to be pulled down if needed. And
is there a way to, because the I don't know what you'd call it, the shop vac, the one that lives under the counter that's movable, is the same power as that big extraction unit.
I was thinking, like, wouldn't it not be easier to just use a vacuum cleaner because it's smaller and more mobile, and you can just also the tubing is way slimmer.
The reason for the tubing in the middle was directly for the thicknesser, and the thicknesser will fill up the vacuum cleaner in just a couple of passes.
Okay.
That's why the middle overhang is there. But the pulley system, I mean, we have already the plants on the pulley system, so at some point a pulley system has been approved, and the main plant weighs at least 15 kilos. So a bit of, a 1 kilo plastic pipe should not be that difficult. It's not like it's a massive safety hazard as long as we do it correctly. But like anything, I think the same thing should probably apply. Like just use Chris's template that he said is absolutely perfect and spot on, and we'll sort everything. I think actually John Sturdy brought in a whole load of pulley stuff because he was going to reinforce the plant pulleys.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
The plant pulleys don't have any safety catches. What you meant to have, I think, with the pulley was one hook for the pulley and then have a safety catch, so that if that
it depends on the system you use, because I was looking at a couple where it's like the way you rope it around, because I used to have it as an old dining room light where you could like lift it up and then pull it down, and it just had like one line, obviously the electrical cabling, and it would have like go 1, 2, and there would be a ball of weight, and so you just pull and pull down, so you don't need to rope it somewhere, you just simply lift it and pull it down. So you can and considering the tubing it's not a plant, it's not the massive spider plants that we have, we should be able to counterbalance it quite easily, so that it's a simple case of grabbing it down and then pulling it back up again without having to have something else stretched across the room or anchored somewhere against a wall.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So other bits of equipment which are on the list, like I said, Alan is looking at that. It's not a fast grinder, it's a medium speed grinder in actual fact, isn't it? So he's looking at liberating it from the office with suitable training and a risk assessment, I suppose, would be a way of looking at it. So I think he's on with that. And Tom was talking about a new belt sander because he said
I think that's something we've discussed like every 6 months for like the last year and a half. And it's lacked somebody to kind of put the force behind it. So that'll be really good because that gets a lot of use. Gets a good deal of use. And actually, because it's so old and messed up, the suction isn't that great. So I imagine you won't be that noticeable, but it'll actually probably help with the air, because so many people sand on that thing and more stuff kicks up than going down the broken slot at the back. That probably helped quite a bit.
Tom said to me, I mean, he's got one in mind from Axminster, and it was cost a couple £100. And so
and that one that he's looking at, the belt actually folds up, so you can have it moving like that, so you can sand stuff without having to hold it down.
I've seen a really nice one that like it itself goes like up and down, so you just hold it and it like sands it for you. It's like, oh, clever.
Well, I think we should you should send that round. I'll try it. If he's got one in mind, you should send it round. If 2 or 3 people in this group and wider woodshop group vote yes, we should say fine and just put it in front of the board for a couple £100. Can we have this, please, and move on?
Christmas present.
Exactly. Something to cheer us up.
Got lots of maps to make over Christmas.
Exactly. Got some decorations to do.
With regards for like other equipment in Makespace, it's not so much what in my little list of things that I'd like to have access to at Makespace, because buying them myself would be too expensive for the odd project I want them for. There are a couple of like general bits of equipment that aren't like powered or anything like that, and therefore shouldn't require training, like improving the grips, the clamps we've got, and what was the one thing I was looking at today? A pocket hole system jig. I think that's what it's called. Like there's certain like tools that I've been seeing and would really like to have be able to have for some of my own projects, but like buying one of those jigs myself would cost me £45 and I can't justify that. But having access to some of those things. What's the situation with putting in a request for Makespace? Do I do something similar like with the
I would do it.
Equipment, or do I just simply go, Adrian?
Well, I think, yeah, it's not just Adrian, but you can put it to the, just put a list together and we can circulate it. And with the track for the circular saw, the issue was how to store it and not lose the little bits. But a couple £100 was approved. I mean, like within 24 hours. So with those sort of things, if you can just mention that there are, why it's useful, and write an email.
Cool. I'm also where I'm trying to think. Jonathan maybe knows this. Might have some information on this. When was the last time Woodshop was just, I guess, reorganized or purged? Because every time I go into some of the drawers to find the odd screw, so every time I open the drawer, it's just
June
just close it again. Just close that drawer again. And it's the same, I guess, with a lot of stuff where we're running low on sandpaper, and there's a weird assortment of screws here and there.
It was the last time we kind of took a big clean out and
so June 2019.
When you miss, if you use the last of something, I mean, it's been the same for a while, but usually what happens is stock comes in, half the stock goes out, half stays in the office. When that half is gone, the next half goes out and we reorder.
And we replenish, yeah.
So for instance, if you break a drill bit, there are drill bits in the drawer. If you ran out of sandpaper, there's rolls of sandpaper in the office. It's not up to date now because of COVID and lockdown, but by March, there was a list and a spreadsheet of everything that we keep in stock in the office.
Yeah.
And I meant for that to be public, but now that we're kind of getting back to normal speed, or slowly, we can have that, then everyone can see what's in stock and you can say, okay, we're out of sandpaper, there's more in the office, sort of thing.
Yeah. Because I know one of the things I was clocking with the Woodshop about a year or so ago, when I started becoming way more invested with spending more time in there on some of the projects instead of just being on the laser cut or 3D printers. I remember always just kind of being like, oh, it'd be really nice if we had X. And then maybe I'd mention that to Alric and he goes, we do have X, it's here. I'm like, okay, do we also have Y? And he goes, yeah, that too. And it's like, how is, I think there's, when I do look around the Woodshop, there's a lot of just stuff in boxes stashed away, and it's always hard to figure out what's what. It would probably be nice if there's any incentive, or if there's any want to I guess spruce up, or I guess update some of the branding on where things are, or just what's available, or
the reason
that might make it more accessible for people to understand how to use the space and what's there for them to use.
So just to mention a couple of the initiatives that have been talked about, there's been talk of actually three things: reorganizing the workshop, there's reorganizing the storage space, which might be a separate thing, but again, Tom and Rick were looking at that, and the last thing was making introductions, which I guess these days would be a video introduction to the workshop and pointing out all the things that we have. So I think those would all help, but I don't know how much movement there's been on them. I suspect at the moment not a huge amount.
Okay, that'd be cool.
That's wicked. Yeah, I think the labeling of the boxes did start, and then it kind of tapered off, because the idea, we used to have all the tools out on shelves, and then the opposite happened. They got so covered in dust that nobody wanted to use them. And then the moment we put them into boxes, more people started to use them because they were clean and intact and well serviced. But again, if you're new and you haven't explored, you can kind of miss things. But yeah, a good start might be relabeling all the boxes. Someone went round and redid all the signs in the space. Maybe we could ask her to do the same.
What's up? I'm happy to do that. That is literally that's kind of my sweet spot of just put music on, let me just organize the shit out of somewhere and I'll make me so happy. I just don't want to step on anyone's toes if someone else is wanting to do it, or if someone's already got a system that they're developing. Like, I'm really good at organizing stuff, but I also just don't want it to be like, I think this is a really good organization, and then everyone else goes, yeah, no.
I think it just takes one person to actually do something. It's like,
yeah. But I'm also all about that improved user experience, you know?
Though I do get your point. The first time I started changing things when I first arrived at Makespace, did not go down well.
Yeah, but that's because when you started doing that, barely anything was being changed. It was like a crawl to make anything happen. And obviously you came in just like kicking down the door, being like, listen up. This is moving. This is also going over here. I'm gutting this thing. And everyone was like, oh.
I actually had members take me aside and be like, what are you doing? Like, this is not, can't just move the things out from under the stairs. Like, it's been there for 2 years. No, but that's where it goes. Like, actually,
there's rules, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Unspoken, unwritten rules.
Anyway, I think Tom mentioned that someone was making some more cupboards, or had suggested.
Yeah, I think he and Rick and maybe Jason and somebody else was going to make some cupboards, and then Rick said he was going to sort of organize it, but then he's got busy.
Okay.
So it's not off, but it's not on at the moment either.
Tom said he was like, you may come in one day and I've just started making them and attaching them to the wall or something. He was like very inspired.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, exactly. He was saying stuff like that, but
that's cool.
It's words and actions.
Yeah.
I think that's the way of a community workshop is that people are massively enthusiastic, and then they're kind of hit by the reality of, oh, actually, I didn't have the time I thought, or I sold a project in my day job, or whatever, and I think we just have to welcome the help when it's available.
Exactly.
But don't assume that anything that's already planned is actually going to happen. So if you want to do it, then go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
I think when there's enough people, because one of the things we could do is if Tom, I know Tom was keen on making them, and I know Jason is. So you just get on with it, and but I think it would be useful to bring Rick in on it as well, to be honest. And
the main thing I'd want to do though is make sure that if I do find that I've got the time and energy, and I am very keen to get more hands-on with carpentry and building and making, because it's a really nice break from me not being on the computer all the time with my work. I just want to make sure that they know I'm doing it, and just so we're on the same page, just so that if they decide they want to come in, they know like, oh, well, Katie's already started on this section, so either I can come in and finish it, or I can work on this other side. So no one's overlapping, and there's no waste of material or waste of time or frustration, so that everyone just knows like what boxes are being ticked and what still needs to be progressed.
Well, I think as a start point, you can put it up there on the Woodshop group and say, I want to get involved and do this, and then they'll say, they'll kind of know. But it's Tom, and the people who've said anything at all are Tom, Rick, Jason. There was one other person who was interested. His name's gone out of my head at the moment.
I think also there's a thing of saying like, you can do stuff intermediately. So if the cupboards are a great idea, but they're not going to happen till March, it's still definitely worth, if for instance, Katie drawing up signs for every box with a cool icon and the Makespace logo saying jigsaw, fret saw, and what's that thing that you grind small bits out with? Dremel.
Dremel.
Yeah,
Dremel.
Because it would be much nicer to have the boxes all labeled for the 3 months that there's going to be a wait for the cupboards.
Yeah, so doing something is better than doing nothing and complaining. Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm happy to do that as well.
Is it worth getting all this into something in Google Drive somewhere or something, so people can just start looking at that, and then you can also you can look in there and go, oh no, Katie's doing that, I'll do this one or something, even.
Definitely, we've got a Google Drive for our use as well. you know, we've got our own. So there's a link on the old notes, and I'll put the link on again. But we've got a Google Drive if you want to create folders in that. Crack on.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of documenting as much as you can, because you know, even if it's a one-person project, if you spend a month on it and you make a certain amount of progress, and then life takes over and you don't come back to it for 6 months, then if you haven't documented what you're doing, then you're basically starting from scratch, because you think, oh yeah, I was thinking of a cabinet and it had some things and
the thing with the stuff.
Yeah, and yeah, you've lost all the thought process. So yeah, you know, the more you document, the better you are, or somebody else who takes over is. And also, when somebody else comes along and says, oh, I was thinking of doing this, then at least you can say, well, could you at least consider doing it like this?
Cool. Is there any more on equipment? I say that because I thought we were going to finish at 8, and I'm a stickler for time, you know.
I know, Chris, it's great. I'm so happy that you are a stickler for time. It's worked wonders for the meetings.
And me getting my tea as well.
Well, that's secondary for me, but I don't know. I'm glad it works out for you too.
Exactly. So, well, the other thing we talked about, hand tools. I think partly it's. I think one thing we can do is I feel the urge coming on to organise a sort of day, a kind of training session for sharpening planes and chisels, which I know you can do on the tool mech, but maybe we should. That's come up so often now, and then we've got these planes that Izzy has donated to MakeSpace, which I've got a few of them derusted now, but not all. So we can have I put a picture on the big group, I think, on getting people together to get them cleaned up and get them into use. And then we've got all this hand equipment that we can start to use. But anyway, long and short is there's an opportunity to sharpen about 10 planes right now if people want to learn how to do it. And there's a great video which I put on the there's like a whole list of videos if you want to learn how to do it off the internet. I put them on the training Classroom, on Google Classroom.
And is that sharpening on the Tormac or by hand?
Both. The ones that are on the Classroom, there's part of the Tormac training that is how to sharpen a chisel and a plane, and there's how to do it by hand. By the old school method.
I think, Stefan, you inducted me on the Tormac and the hand sharpener.
Yeah, I probably did. I'm trying to hand over the Tormac training to Nathan, and he put together the online training.
Okay.
That's bang on, and there's really good videos. I mean, even better than Tom, of the Tormac. Yeah.
The hell for that one.
You're gonna minute that.
There aren't any people in the Tormac. Well, this is completely anonymous, but it's beautiful. It's beautifully sharp. You know, small production values, and then we need to talk to Alaric about it. Anyway, so I mean, there is some. I think the next step with sharpening and hand tools is to get people together and have a crack at it.
Yeah, I'm definitely up for that.
Yeah, so maybe we'll try a sharpening session as a meetup. See what happens. And it's worth mentioning that Curtis and I have set up the Woodshop classroom, or there's a hand tools section in the classroom now. So you can, and all it is a collection of Paul Sellers and Rob Cosman videos on how to sharpen stuff and how to use a plane. But, it took me long enough to find them. So now I make it easier for other people.
Nice.
Well, I have to say that I looked at Paul Sellers' videos on how to restore a hand plane.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is a nice half-hour job, and I'll take my plane into MakeSpace and just have a fun afternoon.
Yeah.
And about 3 days later, I'm thinking, yeah, Should have just bought a new one.
Can we minute that?
No, that's a direct contradiction to what I'm asking people to do. Anyway,
I would like. It may actually be possible. I'd love to see it, actually done. So
well, you can if you come
along. Yeah, maybe I will.
Okay.
Bring along my plane, and you can take one look at it and go, "Oh, I wouldn't start from there."
Listen, Paul Sellers can turn any old rubbish into a beautiful hand plane. I've seen it on that video. Is there any more about tools and stuff like that then?
Not from me.
Trying to think what else we talked about. I mean, other things that we've kind of touched on already would be from the last meeting, we talked about the equipment plan. We talked about housekeeping, which, basic tool maintenance being sharpening tools, and storing them properly, and all sorts of stuff that we're talking about with the cabinets that we want to make, or the organization. I think there's a kind of, somebody needs to crystallize all that into one effectively document, I suppose, at the end of the day. But I think there'll be a lot of input from everybody when somebody picks up the ball and moves it forward, and then we'll have one plan and that'll be it, and then we can do all this other stuff like work out where the table saw is going to go, etc., But so I think we've talked around that, unless anybody else has got anything to say. And then there was one of the things that came up in the last meeting was about buying materials jointly, which I think Hannah wanted to buy some stuff, and I don't know if anybody joined her in that or not, to be honest. But anyway,
I think like with all things at Makespace, when people want to buy stuff, I think instead of being, I guess the first step is, instead of Makespace buying the whole load and then people buying back the stuff, it would just probably be better to make it more clear where we would encourage people to get stocks. Like the amount of times people ask me where to get perspex and birch plywood for the laser cutting, and it's always like Kidtronic and Slag, and then they're like, oh, and they also want to write down. I think just making it public, like if you want to get wood for the lathe, people can say, here's a list of people, they're really good, and if Makespace gets discount code, you like go get 5% off. Or if you just want to get just wood, there's Travis and Perkins or Ridgeons. I think it's just more like a lot of people, when they want to get started, they're just like, where do I go? Home base? Like, yeah. And I'm normally there going like, well, there's 8 options. How cheap are you? Or how good of a quality do you want? Do you have a car? Do you not have a car? Can you do shipping? It's like you want to be able to give that information to people so that at the very least they know where to buy, instead of just getting ripped off on eBay or wish.com.
So we've got a web page at the moment, which if we put on a couple of things, I think one is like where to get stuff. Yeah. Right. Just, and I think another thing we can do, I don't know how people feel about it, is you put a little write up about yourself, like what you're interested in and what you can advise on, so that people kind of make contact with each other. If you come into this new and you don't know who makes cabinets and you want to talk to a cabinet maker, there are in fact 2 or 3 probably very good ones in and amongst Makespace members who would probably help you to think it through, if nothing else, your design, etc., etc. And I think like a directory of people would be a good thing to put on the website. I mean, we've got a little web page, Woodshop web page.
Yeah, doing like almost a get to know the members through blog posts, where it's like, this is Katie, she's a designer and she works on these projects, and images so people can be like, that's kind of what I'm into. And then you can learn the language and understand where the resources come from, and I guess the equipment that we use, so you can figure out what path of research you can go down.
Yeah, the only thing with getting materials, we tried twice before where Makespace buys the materials that people want and then they buy it from you, and it doesn't work, or it didn't work before, because people change their minds, people forget they spent the money, then they only want half of what they ordered, and it's a tough one. So what Katie's suggestion of what we started telling people was, you just post to the group and say, hey, I'm doing an order from Kidtronic, who wants to chime in?
And that's what this was about. That's what the thing on the group was about. If you're buying 150 quid's worth of wood and the delivery is 50.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, I mean, you can.
Yeah. No, I was about to place an order almost of like £70 with Slack, and then the posting and packaging being £12. It's like, that's another sheet of wood. Do I just want to buddy up and split the posting and P&P with somebody?
Yeah. And that's the stuff you can sort of aggregate and then get lower delivery or possibly get it delivered to Makespace so that you
have to lug it in. Yeah.
Or you've got organise a car for people or a van, whatever you're going to do. So it was just like people who need to move stuff and buy in bulk. It seemed to be a good, that seemed to be the thrust of it.
I'm sorry, guys, I'm bailing early because I've got another meeting that I still got to get to tonight. So I'll see you all. Thanks a lot for the invite.
Yeah, see you later.
Thanks, Jonathan.
I mean, is there anything else we need to talk about, or are we wrapping up now?
I think we're close. The training, I think there was the desire for training on hand tools, which I think, to be honest, populating videos is a good start on that. And then when things get a bit easier, we can organise hand tool sessions face to face. But at the moment, the trainers are basically one-on-one, so it probably won't be very useful to do that with a plane or something. Yeah, that's it. Organising beers again, not allowed to do that at the moment. Yeah, and trips out to timber suppliers.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Hey, sounds good fun. So, have I missed anything? Does anybody else want to raise anything? Or
only a quick query from me.
Sure.
Obviously, very keen to get involved with the whole table saw thing. When as and when possible. Katie, how do you want to deal with that in terms of either splitting things up or collaborating, or any preference from you? Or
I mean, I used a table saw a couple of years ago, and I don't have much experience. Like, have you? Do you have much experience with table saws, like purchasing, buying?
None whatsoever. No.
Okay, cool. Because I'm also just like looking at the brand names, going like, I'm familiar with that name, but I don't. Yeah. So I'm happy if you want. Both of us can do a little bit of research, and then we can meet up and review what we've got and see how we want to approach both the proposal risk assessment as well as the business case. So I think at this point it's a question of we do a little bit of our own research, plan when we're going to meet. What is the best way to get in contact with you?
Email, phone, however you want to do it.
Cool.
Really.
I'm going to see. I guess I could see if I can find your email.
Yeah, I'll stick it in the chat. Hang on.
Okay, yeah. If you want to do that, I'll copy that, and that way I can be like, maybe be able to do. I don't know if it'll be. I don't know if I might have time this week. I don't know, but I'll let you know because I'm also going to be doing.
I was thinking if you're not sure about which are the best machines to buy, when you got to a point that you're clear what the spec is to some degree. Anyway, Graham Durant would probably be a good person to talk to. I think
Graham's pretty good, yeah.
I think he's kind of taking a holiday from Makespace at the moment because he's but he's answering the odd email. So I think a nicely written email from somebody he knows he would answer, if you know what I'm saying, Katie. Or
No, he's a pretty cool guy, so that's good to know that.
Yeah, I was just thinking who would I ask anyway? That's who I would ask.
Yeah, cool. But yeah, I'm just gonna send you an email now, Jason, and that way we've got a thread going and we can populate that. But yeah, I'd say like we'll do a little bit of research and then meet up and then figure out how we want to delegate the rest of the work. Especially estimations and plans and stuff. I'm happy to do that.
Just got your email. Cool.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm gonna head off because I want to finish up on this project at Makespace and then go get food.
Sure.
Yeah, this has been really cool. I'm super excited for the Woodshop getting improved. Ooh.
Getting organised. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'll see you guys later. Have a good evening.
See ya.
Yeah.